at a distance. It's also like photons. Photons are massless particles, and yet they are capable of causing changes in mass. I don't think it's completely unreasonable to suggest that if massless particles can interact with massive particles, that the mind, which is massless, can also interact with massive particles.
Okay, so if I see the analogy that you're saying, I wonder if it isn't a concern for your position that that gravity is supervenient on the physical, and that wherever there are no physical objects, there is no gravitational force, even though there may still be a law of gravity. There is no gravity.
Yes.
So, but you're analogizing your non-physical mind to this supervenient physical process of gravity.
Hold on. Could you just define what you mean by supervenience? This term has always been rather obscure to me.
Sure. So suppose that you have two large sets of properties. We'll call them A and B. Set A is supervenient on set B if there could be no change in B without a change in set A. I think this is the example that the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy uses.
Okay. Well, I mean, I do believe that there can be changes. Well, actually, no. Well, first off, I really don't think it matters, but I do believe that for every change in the mind, there is a change in the physical.
So every change in the mind has a change in the physical.
But maybe I haven't. I'm not 100% certain about that. I don't think it matters all that much.
Have you ever encountered a disembodied mind?
Well, if I did, I doubt I'd be able to prove it to you. I can give some examples. I'm very open minded about them. I might be wrong. Um, well, let me give a public example that you can analyze. Again, I'm very open minded about this. I'm not sure if it's true, but um, if you look at the 9/11 Twin Towers attack, there are a lot of coincidences that appear to be rather bizarre, and it doesn't look like it can be attributed to chance. For example, the Chile 9/11 was in 1973, and the person who was most now let's briefly review the Chile 9/11. It resulted in if Chile's population were the size of America, it would have resulted in 50,000 deaths, 700,000 people tortured. Okay, an extremely much more traumatic event than the American 9/11, and the person who was most responsible for this was probably Henry Kissinger, not Richard Nixon. And it just turns out that Chilean families, they brought a lawsuit against Henry Kissinger, and that lawsuit was going to go through on September 11th, 2011. Then, if you look at all of the weird numerology, now I admit that a lot of people who are interested in numerology are completely cockeyed and they're just completely ridiculous. But you have to admit that the fact that the Twin Towers look like an 11, there are 111 days after September 11th. If you add up the number of days before September 11th, I think it's 236. That adds up to 11. I mean, you can go on the internet and find this out. Of course, the people who have these websites, they take it way too far. If I were asked, and I just have been asked, to give any evidence for a disembodied mind, that's the evidence I would give.
Okay, so the evidence for the disembodied mind is a series of numerological coincidences surrounding 9/11.
Yes.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about how it is that that disembodied mind caused 9/11.
It's very easy. The mind force can interact on the brain, so it doesn't take too much logic to conclude that a mind force outside can also interact on the brain.
Okay, how does this mind force interact with the brain? Is it by via a particle?
It's by
Is there a mind particle in the brain that causes this to happen?
No, there's not a mind particle.
It's utterly non-physical.
Utterly non-physical.
Okay, and so this non-physical thing interacts with the physical brain, and I'm still a little bit hung up on how exactly it is that this happens. Do you think that it would be fair to construe it as magic?
I think it'd be fair to construe it as beyond the limits of human knowledge.
Okay, so beyond the limits of human knowledge. So it is not within your knowledge that there could be any evidence for your position.
Well, no, hold on. For instance, we can know that things exist without knowing how they exist. We know the dark.
Sure.
Okay.
Right, right. But what you said was that this was beyond the limits of human knowledge. So would you say that in principle, any evidence for your position is beyond your knowledge?
I would say I can say we can uncover evidence that it exists. We can't uncover evidence of how it exists, how it works.
Right. And would you say that your evidence is generally along the quality of numerological conspiracies about or coincidences about 9/11?
No, no, no. That's only actually I'm sorry. I can give better evidence for disembodied minds, but in order to give that evidence, it would require a debate on evolution. Um, Also, well, let's take the Earth. The Earth obviously is not due to evolutionary forces. You would agree with that, correct?
Depends what you mean by evolutionary. I think that certain arrangements of matter, like massive spherical bodies orbiting stars, are selected for according to the laws of physics.
Okay, well, let me give you evidence that the Earth exhibits planning. Okay.
Okay.
First off, in order to get the atmosphere such that life is possible, you have to tune the gases around the Earth to an extremely high degree.
Sure.
Second, CO2, it's recycled. How is it recycled? Well, the volcanoes explode greenhouse gases into the air. Then the greenhouse gas.
Sure, sure. Okay, yeah, we're running down on time here. So would you say then that the Earth is an intelligent disembodied mind then, Bob?
No, I would say it's the product of an intelligent disembodied mind.
Because you see its configuration as improbable.
Yes.
So would you say that wherever you see improbable configurations, you see disembodied minds?
You'd see the product of their mind.
Right, right. So you see in all improbable configurations disembodied minds.
Yes.
Can you give me an example of an arrangement of matter that is not improbable?
A junkyard.
That is not so you're saying that it's very very likely that any given arrangement of matter would be a junkyard.
Well, let me put it this way. Let me give you a better example. Just go between Mars and Jupiter. You'll find massive objects that are in a chance state.
Sure. But to have something like the asteroid belt, you basically just happen to have three planets of the exact size, exact right shape and size, such that two of them tug apart the third one, and the debris strikes up a perfectly stable orbit around the sun. Now, wouldn't you say that that's an extraordinarily unlikely physical arrangement?
Okay, I see
that
what.
requires extreme fine tuning.
Okay, I see what you're getting at. This is the mistake you're making. The asteroid belt, it's not holistic. It doesn't have an additional property that it acquires when that arrangement of mass is ordered in a certain way. It doesn't.
Sure, it does. It has asteroid belticity, the same way that the Earth has habitability.
Tell me the new property that it acquires.
By doing all of that, the asteroid belt acquires the property of being described by humans as an asteroid belt, much the way that the early Earth, through its wildly improbable combination of gases, assumes the property of being habitable.
But it doesn't achieve a new function.